Hi guys, welcome back to the House of Hughes. I need to do my makeup and I thought it would be the perfect time to answer my most common questions. I did end up putting a little question box on my Instagram. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, that's typically where I will like ask you guys questions for videos and things like that. So if you ever want to be involved, be sure to follow me over there. But today we're going to dive into all of your guys' questions just while I get ready and just have like a super casual chit chat video. I did my best with lighting, you guys, because this room is really dark, but I can't have you directly in front of my vanity or I can't see myself. I do not know how these beauty gurus do it, but we're just gonna do our best. You guys already know that I cannot focus while I'm doing my eyebrows, so I'm gonna quickly do the brows and then we will dive into the questions. The eyebrows are done, so now we're going to go in with the e.l.f. Halo Glow. This is a great dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury, and we will go with our first question. How do you keep the spark with your husband and having 2 kids? So that's a really great question, and I've been pretty open with you guys about this. I definitely think that having kids can be very trying on your marriage while simultaneously making you love your spouse more than you ever have before. I think that it is so special and sweet to watch your spouse become a parent, but when it comes to having children, you both have this mutual agreement that you are going to put your kids first in terms of time and priority, just because your kids need more than your spouse does. However, Hunter and I find ways to prioritize our marriage because obviously our kids deserve 2 healthy, happy parents who are madly in love with each other. So one thing that Hunter and I started doing about a year ago is we go on weekly date nights, literally no matter what. I'm not kidding when I say that we go on a date every single week by ourselves with no other couple, without our kids. Yes, it has been an investment in terms of babysitting and also just like finding activities to do, but you guys, it is so worth it. I can honestly say that it has improved our marriage so much. Another thing that we also do is we will actually check in with each other on these date nights. So we will have what we call marriage check-ins. We will actually talk about what the other person has been doing to make us feel loved, what things the other person can improve on, and just really important things that we want to talk to each other about. Of course, we do this on a day-to-day basis too, but just having that time carved out where it's only about Hunter and I has made our marriage just really blossom in the past year and a half. So I would highly recommend that to every married couple. I also think it's really important to remember that although I do believe that you should put your spouse above your children, if you have a newborn who's like crying in the middle of the night, it's impossible in that moment to put your spouse first. And any spouse would encourage that the other spouse put the child first in those unique circumstances. So it really is important to go out of your way to make time where your spouse is prioritized on purpose. Because if you don't do that, it gets really easy to get caught up in this phase of life when you have young kids. So that really would be my greatest piece of advice, is to do weekly date nights, prioritize time to go on trips, just the 2 of you, things like that that are within your means, where that time is dedicated to you and your spouse without interruption. We are really just diving into the hard questions, you guys. What started your faith transition when leaving Mormonism? I have talked about this briefly on my channel. I don't know if I've ever done like a deep dive on it, and if I did, it was like years ago. But for those of you that may not know, my husband and I were both raised LDS, which is also Mormon. We live in Utah, so that's probably not very surprising. When it comes to Mormonism, I think there's a big difference between leaving Mormonism and just not like aligning with it anymore and actually deconstructing the doctrine of Mormonism. So I would definitely say that I have fully deconstructed, which is just a difficult process. It literally caused a huge identity crisis for me because literally every fundamental belief that I had about the entire world, not just about religion, but like about the entire world, about what I ate, drank, wore, believed in, literally came crashing down when I realized that Mormonism isn't true. And so that was a very painful process, but I would say that my research on church history is really what started that process. In Mormonism, you are highly discouraged to read any what's referred to as anti-Mormon material, meaning that you cannot read or look at anything that is against Mormonism. So that right there is obviously a massive red flag, but that's what you grow up believing. So when you indoctrinate a child, it's really hard for them to break free of those beliefs, especially when you are taught those things by people that you love, you view as very, very wise, like your parents. So I would definitely say that my deconstruction of Mormonism really started with looking into Mormon history and how Mormonism came to be. And then it really just started falling apart from there. A lot of people will say that when you grow up in a high demand religion, once you pull one thread, it just never stops pulling. And I would definitely agree with that. Did you lose your period during your eating disorder? So for those of you that are new or that are not familiar with my history, I did suffer from an eating disorder from the ages of 17 to 21. I am very proud to say that I have been recovered for almost 8 years. My 8-year recovery date is coming up, and that is a day that I am more proud of than any other day of the year because it just represents my new healthy life that I've been living for 8 years. My eating disorder was very severe, unfortunately. And so unfortunately, there were certain times when I was really sick where I did not get my menstrual cycle. However, I had been recovered for, let's see, almost 4 years when I started having children. So it did not impact my ability to get pregnant. And I really believe you can have a very healthy body once you recover from an eating disorder, just like any other addiction. So although it took my body a little while to regulate after I became healthy again, I have been able to have a healthy menstrual cycle ever since. I know that this was not the question, but for anyone who is suffering from any sort of disordered eating or any sort of eating disorder, I would highly, highly recommend seeking therapy and getting help because I truly believe that going to therapy is the reason that I'm able to live a full, beautiful life now. Has Beckham ever done a swallow study to see if he can start trialing with eating more foods orally? This is a fantastic question for anybody who's new here. My son Beckham is almost 5, which is insane, and he has cerebral palsy and is primarily fed through a G-tube. Beckham got the G-tube when he was in the NICU and about 4 months old. And he did get a swallow study done when he was 7 months old. And that's when we were given permission to start feeding him by a bottle and feeding him orally. So he does swallow safely. However, Beckham has really severe food aversions. So he's very, very afraid of eating. And whenever he eats orally, if it's something he's not familiar with, it causes him to gag and throw up. And so right now, our main focus with feeding is just to simply make it a very, very positive and happy experience. So even though it is safe for us to push Beckham and give him more food than we do now, it would not be wise because that could cause even more severe aversions in the future, which could really set us back. I am a really big believer that time really can heal the aversions that he has. And I really just think he needs to be able to trust us that we're allowing him to take it at his own pace and just focus on quality over quantity when it comes to his oral feeds right now. And that's exactly what we've been doing. And he just continues to improve. And right now he's just like obviously the biggest fan of Gerber baby food. As you guys have seen in some of my more recent videos, Beckham has also started taking water from a syringe, which is super exciting. So even though these steps are happening really slowly, they're still happening. And that's really just what the most important thing is to us. So he can eat safely, but it's just very scary. I want to start losing weight, but I'm still breastfeeding. How and where would you start? This is a phenomenal question that I'm sure so many of you watching can relate to. For anyone that doesn't know, I am an online trainer and I do specialize in nutrition and disordered eating. So I have worked with hundreds of breastfeeding and pregnant mamas. And I have a really strong opinion when it comes to breastfeeding specifically. And this is what I tell all of my clients who are breastfeeding that are focused on losing weight as well. One thing that's really important to remember is you have your entire life to lose weight. There is not a time frame that your body has in which it can burn fat and lose fat, and you only have a very small window in the grand scheme of things to breastfeed your baby. So my first question will always be, what is your priority? Is your priority to lose weight or is your priority to breastfeed your child? And it is okay, whatever your answer is, it is okay, but it is extremely important that you know the answer to that question before you start making goals, simply because it is very, very common and normal for your supply to drop when you lower your caloric intake. And we all know that the only way to lose weight is to reduce your calories and increase your energy expenditure, putting your body in a caloric deficit. So if you are looking to lose weight and you're still breastfeeding, I really, really would suggest that you think long and hard about what your priority is. And again, There is no mom shaming here. It is totally okay if you're like, you know what, I really do want to feel a little bit better in my own skin and I want to prioritize weight loss. Fantastic. Just know that entering a caloric deficit most likely will drop your milk supply a little bit, and that's just something that's to be expected. If your goal is to breastfeed your baby for a certain amount of time and that's your #1 priority, then that's also fantastic. And I would recommend just eating at maintenance until the time comes that you are done breastfeeding. Like I mentioned, I am an online coach and I've helped hundreds and hundreds of women with this exact process. My website is conqueredcoaching.com. It shows everything that I offer. So if you're interested in getting help with your macros, help with disordered eating, help while you're pregnant or breastfeeding, then I highly recommend looking at my website. I have a ton of options for you guys. So again, that's conqueredcoaching.com. And you can also email me with any questions or inquiries at conqueredcoaching@gmail.com. How many kids do Hunter and I want in the future? That is definitely probably our most commonly asked question, which makes perfect sense because Hunter and I are only 28 years old and we have 2 kids, and we are actually done having babies. Originally, when Hunter and I first met, we had decided that we really wanted to have 3 or 4 kids. However, if you guys are familiar with my pregnant journeys at all, then you know that it is very unsafe for Hunter and I to try and have another baby. And so we decided that for our family that we have right here, right now, we want to be cautious and just be happy with what we have. And we truly felt when we had Blakely that she completed our family. Now, I think just like anything else that's unexpected or that just isn't what you initially thought it was going to be, there is a slight mourning process and just a grieving process of what you envisioned your life to be like and what it turns out to be. And that has nothing to do with who my children are, but just simply not knowing that we weren't really gonna get the choice of how many children we wanted to have. I think that's hard to have that choice kind of taken from you, and I'm sure that anybody else in a circumstance where they were not able to choose can really relate to that. However, like I said, it was kind of difficult to accept at first, but now that our kids are 4.5 and 3, Hunter and I are like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what was meant to be for our family. We actually wouldn't choose to have another one even if we could. And so it's so interesting how you just don't know until you're in that situation. But it really is crazy how everything just really did like work out the way that it was supposed to. And now we are ecstatic about only having 2 kids when we initially thought we would want a much bigger family. But we are really happy and content with the kids that we have, and they complete our family. I know that I wasn't able to get to every single question, but I feel like we got through a good chunk, and I am now done doing my makeup, so I will be sure to do another Q&A. If you guys have any additional questions, I will be sure to pull questions from the comment section of this video as well for my next Q&A. You can address them to me, you can address them to Hunter, and as you guys saw in today's video, I like to answer questions across a wide variety of topics because I just think it's more fun and more interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed doing your makeup with me and just kind of hanging out and answering some questions. But I love you guys so much. I want to remind you to be brave like Beckham, and I will catch you in our next video. Bye!